What's up? Welcome back. So in this video, I'm going to be doing an unscripted story time about the worst purchase I have ever made to date. And this purchase was actually the purchase responsible for thrusting me out into this world of personal finance and making me get better with my money. But you have to stick with me to the end to see kind of how this worst purchase turned out and kind of flipped itself around. But anyway, without making this super long, let's go ahead and get into the story time. Okay, so just a little backstory so I can kind of redeem myself before I get into the actual purchase. So whenever I turned 16, I, as an adult now, realized why my mom was counting down the days until I turned 16. So I remember I turned 16 and she basically told me that I had to go out and get a job. So I was not work optional at 16. I basically had no choice but to go out and get a job because my mom could not afford my expenses. And so as an adult now, I realized that my sweet 16 was basically her sweet 16 because now she was going to get help covering my expenses. So I get a job, and the first one didn't work out, but I got a job at Sonic shortly after that. And so I was a Sonic car hop through junior year, senior year, as well as I believe like the first year of college as well. And so I worked as a Sonic car hop, and I remember in junior year or senior year, I also took this class because if you took this class and you had a job, so you had to have a job to get into the class, you could leave school early. So you could leave school early so that you could get to work. And we had to write down our weekly hours every single week. And I remember I was always the last person to write down my hours, and I would kind of skim over my classmates' hours, and I realized that they were clocking in like 10 to 15 hours. Meanwhile, I was like at 40 hours, 40 plus. And child labor laws, everything like that. Fast food restaurants really don't care about that. I feel some of them don't, because they're just trying to keep up a business. And so I remember looking at everyone's hours and I'm like, why am I the only one working 40 plus hours? And I distinctly remember wanting my teacher, the instructor, to look at my hours and kind of ask why I was working so much, basically full-time hours, but she never did. And I remember the students that were only working like 10 hours a week, 5 to 10, sometimes 15, they were riding around in Mercedes. I remember they had brand new Mustangs because Mustangs were really hot back then. Just brand new cars, nicer cars. And here I was with a clunker. And I remember I did not have a door handle. So I didn't have a door handle. It was like a little string that came attached to the driver's side door, and you pulled it and then the car door came open. I did not have a mirror up top. It was just some things missing, but my mom did the best that she could. I remember my car, it cost like $800. She got it from an auction. And so I'm like, here I am. I'm working 40 plus hours. I have a little clunker. I'm finally 18. I'm going to go get a new car because I work hard and I deserve it. That's how I justified it. And so we go to the car dealership. I know nothing about interest rates, right? So I know nothing about interest rates. I know nothing about auto loans. I know nothing about anything, nothing about credit score, anything like that. So we go in. I did not have any credit, obviously. So the first dealership was like, no, we can't put you in anything. And so we try another dealership. They're like, no, we can't put you in anything. You're going to need a cosigner. Had no idea what a cosigner was, did not care. So I'm calling different family members because my mom's basically like, you don't want me to sign for you because my credit isn't the best. And that taught me young that marriage, when you're trying to get out of a marriage, it can take a huge toll on your credit score. So that's kind of the position that she was in at the time. And she's like, I will sign for you, but it may not be the best option because I know my credit score is not the best. But every single family member that I called, they gave me, they didn't want to say no flat out, but they gave me these excuses. So one was like, I'm working on getting my credit score up. I'm trying to get into a home. One was like, I'm trying to buy a new car right now. One was like, I kind of have to see. I don't really know. And I didn't understand at the time why they were giving me all of these excuses. But now as an adult and I'm in the personal finance world, I realized that these people did not think that I was going to be able to make these payments on a new car, and they did not want their credit score to tank, nor did they want to be responsible for the loan, because as a co-signer, you're basically like a co-owner of that car. So if I default on the payments, they're going to come and they're going to go after the co-signer, because basically they are responsible for making the payments on the car as well. Totally get it. If somebody called me now, I would probably give them the same runaround, or I would just flat out say no. But that was the situation at that time. And so I'm in shambles. I'm crying. I really, really want this new car. I am sick of being embarrassed at the stoplight because my car is screaming melodies and everyone's looking at me. That's just how I thought about it, or thought that people were seeing me at that time. But basically, I was making a very impulsive decision when it came to getting this car, and nothing was going to stop me. I was dead behind determined to get into this new car. And so we get to the dealership that my brother works at, and they allow my mom to co-sign for me. And I remember vividly the car salesman. It was a used Volkswagen Passat. It was really nice. It had leather interior. And so I'm like, yes, I'm going to get a new car. I'm going to show off. I'm going to show my boyfriend. I'm going to show my coworkers. I'm finally going to feel like that girl at the stoplight. I would just have my heart set on that vision of me whipping it into my Volkswagen Passat. And so the car salesman comes in and he's like, your payments are going to be $404, I think it was $404.59 or $404.79 and the way he put it was marketing at its finest, for 50 something months. And my 18-year-old brain is like, 50 something months. Like, that's fine. That's great. That's a short amount of time. I can do that. I pretty much bring in about $200 in tips per every 2 weeks or every month at that time. And my paychecks were about $450. So I'm like, totally fine. I can do it. 54 months. That's not going to take very long. But now as an adult, I realize that 54 months, or however he put it, was basically 5 years. I signed on the dotted line for 5 years. And my mom, bless her heart, she's the type of parent that's going to make you, she's not going to make you, she's going to let you make mistakes. She's not really going to interfere. She's just basically going to sit back. She's going to tell you her piece up front. She's going to try to sway you in the right direction up front. But if she sees that we're in this impulsive state of mind, she's like, okay, I'm going to let you make your mistakes. I'm just going to sit back. I'm going to be quiet. And that's what she did. And so she's basically that parent that's like, I'm going to let you touch this hot stove and I bet you won't touch it again. So that's how I learned a lot of my lessons. So she signed for me as a co-signer, and I think my interest rate was a little over 9%, and my auto loan payments were $404. They were basically the amount of my Sonic car hop paycheck. Mind you, I had insurance. The insurance went up as well. It was about $150, $160 probably. So I was having to give up one entire paycheck every month. Only got paid twice a month. One paycheck had to go. And I basically had to live off one paycheck and tips. And at first, I was feeling myself. Everything was great. Everything was fine. And then I started feeling the sting of only having one paycheck. And I really felt that sting when I got pregnant with my daughter. So my firstborn, I got pregnant with her at 20. I had her a month after I turned 21. So I was still very young. To me, I was still a child. I was still learning, and I was very naive about a lot of things. And so me living off of one paycheck and trying to take care of a child, needless to say, I was in shambles. I felt like I had nothing to take care of her with because I could barely take care of myself at that point. So there was a point in time where I got to this place where I felt like my auto loan was literally ruining my life. And I remember when I first started up a blog, it wasn't anything about money. It wasn't anything about finances. It was just me basically freelance writing or just freely writing, creative writing. And I remember I titled the post, "How My Auto Loan Destroyed My Life." And it was because money was super tight. I was living off of credit cards basically at that point. I couldn't afford basic necessities for myself, let alone my child. And I got to this place where I was super stressed. I was in this whirlwind of like, kind of like, looking back on it, like slight depression. And it sounds really silly to say, oh, my auto loan did this. But when you're in this place financially where you can't afford yourself or your child and you're stressed out constantly, then you have no savings. I could not get past the minimum deposit because I would have to take it right back out because I'm giving up one paycheck. And I did that for years. Even after I left Sonic, I was part-time at a bank, and I could only be part-time because I'm taking 6 college courses and I'm in college for half the day as well. So I went from a paycheck that was like $450 up to about $525, but regardless, I was still having to give up one paycheck. And that puts you in a really, it puts you in a bind because we make money mean something about ourselves. And that car signified that I had made it to me. Like a lot of people feel like material things signify that they're successful and that they made it. That was the state of mind that I was in at that time. And so knowing that other people were seeing me in that luxury car, because it was technically like a luxury car from the interior and the exterior, I felt like they thought that I made it. And so coming from that place to now realizing that I didn't make it, I made a huge mistake and I can't get rid of this mistake no matter how hard I try, it sent me into this whirlwind of like depression. I felt so low because I really did not have anything to live off of. And I remember being like super desperate at one point where I tried to give the car back, and I was on Google researching how to give the car back, and I came across a voluntary repo. Thank God that even at a young age, I realized that eventually I was going to need a good credit score, and that voluntary repo was going to be on my credit score on my credit report for a couple of years, more than a couple of years actually. And that was not the route that I wanted to go. I realized that I was going to want to get a home or something else in the future, and that was not the smartest thing. So I looked into other things that I could do to get rid of the car. And basically I wanted to do another trade-in. I read that a trade-in was a good option to get into, like a car that was cheaper, and I was hoping that it would lower my car payment at least by a little bit, because that really would have helped me tremendously at that point. And so I remember going to different dealerships and being denied because, number one, I really didn't have any stable credit history, even though I had this car. And number two, I was upside down. I was upside down because I owed more on the car than what the car was worth, which is really what happens when you have a high interest rate. Not a lot of your car payment is going to your auto loan, and the car is depreciating, obviously. So you're not keeping up with the payments in regards to the principal. Most of it's going to interest, or at least it was in my case. So obviously I was owing more for the car than what the car was actually worth. And so I am on Google nearly every single day just trying to figure out what the heck can I do to get rid of this car, get rid of the very car that I really wanted to be in, that I was dead set on getting in. So I did all of this research and going to different dealerships and things like that when I was at the end of my pregnancy with my daughter, because I really, before I gave birth, I wanted to put myself in a better position so I could actually take care of her. But that did not work out. And it wasn't until right before I actually gave birth, the night before, that I made another mistake, which was I did a trade-in. And so I went back to my brother's car dealership. They were basically the only ones that would work with me because my brother worked there. And I did a trade-in for a brand new car. So it was the car that I have now, 2012 Mazda 6. That was in the year 2012. And I did that trade-in because the Volkswagen, the maintenance on it was very high. The oil changes was very high. I was trying to think of what that was called. And it needed about $1,500 in repairs. And $1,500 looked like $10,000 to me. So when they told me that, I was freaking out. I was like, I'm about to give birth. I have no money to afford these car repairs. What am I going to do? And then my brother was like, you know, you need to trade it in because you're upside down. You need to trade it in for something that's of higher value. And so I was like, okay, do I have to put anything down? They said I didn't need to put anything down. And so I went with that route because I was basically coming out of $0. Looking back on it now, super dumb. Wish I would not have done it, but I did it anyway because that just made sense in my 21-year-old brain at the time. And plus I had no money to afford these car repairs. And so I traded in for the car that I have now. Literally had no idea that it was going to cost me about $1,200 to get my tags because I was upside down and my car payment went up. And so the way that they explained it to me was it went up because I was upside down, and they said, oh, you know, just in a year you'll be able to refinance. So I'm like, okay, I just have to thug it out for a year. So it went from $404 to $459. As you can probably tell, after a year, I could not refinance to save my life. Denial after denial after denial after denial, I got denied. And so here I am coming out $59 more in an auto loan payment every single year. And I'm still making about the same amount. And so I went from thinking that an auto loan ruined my life to really thinking that an auto loan ruined my life. But that was the start of my personal finance journey. It was the start of my debt-free journey. I remember being on the floor one day and I'm crying and I'm lashing out at my 2-year-old because she's freaking out, wondering why I'm freaking out. And I lashed out at her and I didn't realize that I lashed out at her. And then I'm like, Diana, what the heck are you doing? What are you doing? You birthed this child, like you brought this child into this world. It's your responsibility to get up off of this floor and figure it out. And so me and Google became BFFs. I was on there Googling everything, how to increase my credit score, how to get this debt paid off. I just said, God, if I can get this auto loan paid off, I will never get an auto loan again. I've learned my lesson. And so through all of my Google searches, I started to learn about interest rates. I realized that most of my payment was not going to the principal and I needed to get my credit score up in order to refinance, like the car salesman told me that I could do easily within a year. And so I went on this credit score journey for a year, got it up to a 700, finally refinanced, and it dropped my payments by a little over $100 after I put down about $1,500 because I was still upside down. I took that $100 gap that I now had and I went ham, cheese, and potatoes on the rest of my debts. I applied it to my credit cards. Whenever I got my tax refunds, I was applying my tax refunds to my auto loan to pay it up. Just anything that I could do to get this auto loan down. But throughout that journey, throughout this journey of me declaring that the auto loan ruined my life. It's so terrible. It's horrible. I can't pay for anything. I'm basically giving up one paycheck every single month. I was learning everything that I needed to learn in order to be successful on my financial journey. So I went through this painful journey, this painful mistake, but this painful mistake became my biggest blessing, because out of that pain, that struggle, that heartache, and that frustration, it built Money Boss Mama. It got me into the personal finance world. I was learning about interest rates, and it was really interesting. Credit scores, it became very interesting. It became like a game to me. And I was like, cool, if I could pay this off, then I'll have XYZ amount of money. And so I was learning, and I was eating up all of this information, and I was putting it into practice, and I was seeing the results. And so I always say that my auto loan was the worst mistake I've ever made, and I stand firm behind that, because it totally was. I don't think that I will ever get another auto loan again. It scarred me so bad, but it was the best mistake that I have ever made in my life, because it put me exactly where I am. It taught me the lessons I needed to learn, and it allowed me to learn the things that helped me be successful and become Money Boss Mama. Money Boss Mama literally started from that auto loan that I got at 18 years old, and I thought it was a great idea, and then I realized that it was a terrible idea, but then I realized that God allowed me to get that auto loan because he needed me to learn the things that I learned to be able to do exactly what I'm doing. So for all of you who swear that you made a stupid money mistake, whether that is getting, an auto loan, another type of debt, or anything like that, you gave up money to someone else, been there and done that, I challenge you to not see it as a mistake. I challenge you to see it as something that is positive, because it is. If you did not make that mistake, you would not have learned those lessons, and you would not know what you know now. With every mistake is an experience, and with experience comes wisdom, and you need that wisdom to learn how to position yourself in the life that you're working to create. So hopefully this was a very interesting story time, and I do want to hear down below in the comments, what was the worst money mistake that you guys made, and what lessons did you learn from it? Sound off in the comments. I will join you down there, and I will catch y'all in the next video.